Hi, hey, what's up, guys? So I'm here with Kaitlin, Trainer Kaitlin in Holman, because she has a good story about the importance of food and why one of them, another of the gazillion examples. I'm such a big on food because it's so much more than weight loss. So much more, because it can have way more problems and cause way more complications than we realize. So can you just kind of tell your story with your digestive issues and where you were, and then maybe we can even talk about 'cause your sister's getting some crazy advice too right now, right?
Yeah.
But let's start with your story. So
yeah.
just
So I guess the gut issues kind of started like maybe 2 years ago. I never had any issues leading up to that. So eating whatever I wanted. I was in sports all the time, so I was constantly moving, exercising. I would say probably my last year of college, that's when fitness and kind of things stepped away, and that's when I started feeling like the gut issue. So I'd eat something, super immense pain. I'd be on the ground for a couple hours. I would be throwing up the foods.
Like what kind of pain? How would you describe it?
Excruciating. It was bad. I thought
like an ice pick sticking in you.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I used
So
to
like
get.
a knife, kind of like
a stabbing and twisting.
Yes.
Was it on the side?
Yep. So I thought it was appendix.
Which side was it on? Must have been your left side.
Yeah, because it was the appendix side.
Oh,
whatever it was.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I thought it was that. Almost like sometimes too, it would feel like a balloon was inside.
Yeah.
It was like there's so much
just pressure
air or pressure that it was gonna burst, and I couldn't find anything to get around it. So I went to the doctor, and they told me not to eat certain foods, which we'll probably go over a little bit later.
Yeah, so what were the foods you were told to avoid?
So they basically put me on a FODMAP, or however you say that. But some of the things, like the fruits I couldn't eat apples, watermelons, acidic fruits, because then they thought it was acid reflux. So they weren't quite sure what they were dealing with, so they just cut it out altogether. And that was pretty hard, just because I had been used to eating all this stuff and going to almost nothing. That led to a lot of frustration, anxiety over eating food. I lost a ton of weight, unhealthy amount. I didn't know how to work out anymore because I wasn't eating
cut
enough.
Out meats or something?
Red meats as well. Yep.
So how does that fit into FODMAP? But they said no red meat.
Yeah.
So no red meat, and then certain fruits and vegetables.
Right. Yep. Vegetables was more like those gassy greens, so like broccoli, cauliflower.
Cruciferous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I still don't eat because I know that affects my stomach, but that was one of the things.
Have you noticed that cooked versus raw?
Yeah, raw is worse than cooked for me. Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. So I guess going to the doctor, they thought it was a bunch of different things. So I got a bunch of tests done, ultrasounds, a bunch of medications prescribed to me.
Yeah, what were the medications? Yeah, this is very important. What were they designed to, what condition were they designed to treat? So I'm sure IBS meds.
Yep. So I had those. I was instructed to take Miralax and fiber every single day.
Miralax and fiber.
Yep. I was prescribed a lot of painkillers. So there was like a steroid that would do that. One for blood pressure, because that takes down anxiety as well.
So blood pressure medication.
Yep.
Plus anti-anxiety medication.
Yep.
Same thing.
Yep.
Or it does two things.
Yep.
Just real quick though, I gotta go a little tangent. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, is a nonsense diagnosis. You go in there and say oh, my stomach hurts, I have all this pain, it's really irritated, oh, my bowels are irritated, oh, you have irritable bowel syndrome. It's well, no shit, that's what I just said. So it's a play on words. It's not a diagnosis, it's just rewording of symptoms, which to me is nonsense. But anyway.
Yeah, and that going off
what's
of
causing
that,
it? That's what we're trying to get to. But.
Yeah. But going off that, they didn't know what it was, so they did all these tests first.
Right.
Then when they couldn't figure it out, it was IBS.
That's the blanket.
Yes.
It's basically saying we have no idea what the hell's going on. You have stomach pain.
Yeah, which I was already frustrated with.
Reworded stomach pain.
Yes. Yeah. So after all those tests and going through all those hoops, then it was just, you have IBS, there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
And
that's
that just
awful.
took away all that hope of I can't do anything.
That's the worst thing you can do. And there's really interesting studies on this, but just take away hope.
Mm-hmm.
and say, oh, you know, it's genetic. The's nothing you can do. Oh, it's just whatever. Continue.
Yeah.
I'll keep my rants to myself.
Yeah. So, I guess after that, it was IBS. They prescribed. They wanted to do a couple last tests, so colonoscopy, endoscopy. They thought I might have celiac disease,
right?
Which I didn't end up having. Endoscopy, they found nothing. Colonoscopy, that was the thing that they found findings on. But through all that, it just led to a bunch of...
And just so it's like cameras from both ways, right? Just so...
Yes, cameras from both ways.
Right.
Yep, put under, fully sedated. Yeah, so I guess once they found those findings, I had some precancerous findings,
right.
Pretty abnormal for my age.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that they found, but that really didn't have anything to do with symptoms of that pain in my stomach. So that still wasn't solved. Not until I came to Eupraxia. So I started kind of eating off of I started with the 6-week challenge.
Right.
Started eating off of that. And from there, I didn't even slowly reintroduce things like meat or apples, stuff like that. I just started eating them again. Mm-hmm. No issues since. Right. I've not had any of those pain, stomach issues.
No, it was, if I remember, it was a few weeks ago you had something that was a bad idea. Can you tell me that?
Oh, yeah. Well, it was at the Christmas party when the eggnog.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew I shouldn't.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
And then how'd you feel after that?
Not good.
Yeah. And this just all take a little bit, and because there was dairy in there.
Yes.
Right? And I drank that stuff too. Yeah. It's really interesting. Same Noah. And like the later that day, I ached so bad. I'm like, what in the hell? And I thought, because I had a little vodka. I was like, man, I almost never drink. I'm like, I can't drink anymore. This is just killing me. And then the eggnog, I remember asking who made it. I was like, hey, what is it? She's like, oh, it's coconut milk. I was like, oh, okay. And the next day, or 2 days later, she's like, oh, yeah, man, I didn't realize how much dairy really tears up my stomach. I'm like, what the shit, right? I specifically asked, but then it made sense. Like, no wonder I was so achy and just felt inflamed and just old. I felt old, and that's what got you. So, I mean, the big trigger we found was probably just dairy.
Yep.
And the dairy proteins. And grains. So you don't do grains anymore?
No grains at all.
Right? And then, and you didn't know, there's so many lessons here. It's like, one, there's no weight issues. I mean, how many people have digestive issues, acid reflux, pain, digestion? I mean, this is what I went through. And you just need to cut out certain things. And people always ask me, what about this? It's like, start with your meal plan. Like, go all in on the meal. That's what I always start with. It's almost always does the trick. But a lot of times, because how old were you when you first started noticing stuff?
22, 23 maybe.
Yeah, and this is very common. Yeah. A lot of times it takes time, right? So, it's like, oh, that's why my kids don't get any of this shit. It's like, well, why? It's because a lot of like, oh, my kids seem to just fine, but it takes time for stuff to build before you develop symptoms, right? So it's like, an analogy I like to give is like, let's say I've been smoking for 5 years. And it's like, well, you should stop smoking. It's like, why? I don't have cancer. It's like, well, yeah, but over time, if you keep smoking, there's a damn good chance you're going to, right? And so many things are that way. And that's how I like to look at it. So now, just you feel good, right?
Yeah.
Feel stronger, healthier, more vibrant.
Absolutely.
I mean, you were kind of like this is the way how it goes both ways. So those shitty foods for a lot of people put on weight, but for you, your body's rejecting it. And you're like starving, weren't you?
Yes.
Like emaciated.
Yeah, I was not in good shape. I lost all my muscle. I lost, I would say, probably 50 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
50 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah, so you were literally like starving to death.
Yeah.
Because
I just didn't know what to eat, and I was frustrated with it.
And then for me, I felt that there's certain things in certain foods that aren't really, we don't need them, right? Like no one needs dairy. Like you do not need it at all. Right? There's not a single nutrient in dairy products that you can't get from other foods, right? I haven't had it in decades. I'm a pretty strong, fit, healthy dude. Same goes with grains, like whole grains on the food plate. It's just nonsense. It's starvation food. It can keep you alive, but it's not something you can thrive on. And there's nothing in there that you can't get from the Eupraxia eating plan that we teach. Does that make sense? But, so you're like, well, anyhow, there's something in there that was damaging you on the insides, and you're developing terrible symptoms, and tons of medication. The amount of money spent, holy shit! Like, money and discomfort. just for, and then two, you got a lot of times, colon cancer is not a terribly uncommon. I'm pretty sure colon cancer kills more people than breast cancer annually. I'm pretty sure. You can fact check me. But it's like, well, what is it? Like, what could be causing all these colon cancers? Well, it's like we're putting things in our colon that shouldn't be there, right? It's just a tube from here to here. What you put through that tube is very, very important. Far more than just weight gain and weight loss. That's why, I'm so bad for kids. Like, I was at this wrestling tournament this weekend, and what kids were eating, it's just like, what the fuck? Like, it's just so terrible. And you look at the adults, it's like, well, that's the path, and worse because you're starting younger. But anyhow, what you put in there damages all the cells and all the things inside you, and then it just over time it bioaccumulates, and all of a sudden, boom, one day you have symptoms. And there's so many examples of this. People are like, I have a bad back. Like I didn't have a bad back for 20 years, and all of a sudden, well, it's because over time your hips get stiffer, your torso gets weaker, and then all of a sudden you have symptoms, right? Your sister. Family's always tough, but she's kind of struggling with issues too, right?
Yeah.
And she's getting some crazy advice from. What was the advice she's getting? Like an all juice diet or something?
Yeah, it's Candida, which I've heard about before.
Yeah.
But it was starting at that all juice diet and just flushing out the system, and then basically resetting your whole stomach lining. So slowly introducing foods, but. What kind of foods were they introducing? I don't know how. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of crazy. One thing to you guys, just know, like, red meat's it's an amazing food. For them to just have you cut that out, it's insane. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. It's such a nutrient dense, complete protein. Humans have been eating it since the beginning of humans. You can make a slight argument for, trying to avoid super fatty, grain-fed. Like, how do you make cows fat and sick? Feed them grains. Why are humans the way we are? Is we eat less grains, right? It's the same sort of thing. But in a nutshell, like, it's just another of gazillion million examples. I got actually yesterday another great example. Member brought it to me. I could post the numbers, but his cholesterol was like 260, and he was told, well, it just runs in his family. This was last year, so he decided to follow the eating we show. Now his cholesterol is down over 50 points, which is pretty good, just by changing diet. It just affects so many things other than weight loss and weight gain, and I really, really encourage everyone to think like long term. Just think, it's very hard for humans to do this, but think long term, because these bad choices, they compound over time, and it's not a matter of if, but when it comes back to bite you in the ass. On the flip side, you make good choices, and then 6 months down the road, you look back and you feel proud of yourself, and you feel really good, and you feel awesome, and people start asking you questions like, hey, what you been doing? You look good. That's where we want to try and get to. Anything else you want to add before I hit stop?
Just the strength component too, and like how fast that escalates with a good diet.
What do you
as
mean,
well.
like physical strength comes back? Yeah.
I looked back at a video of me a year ago trying to do a banded pull-up, and I couldn't.
Wow. And
it's just amazing. So I've been looking back at videos of me doing some things, and it's just to see that muscle growth too is just crazy.
One more thing on that. Yeah. So like, have you ever ate like shit all weekend, and then on Monday you're like, man, I just feel like what a great workout today? Like, no, it's like, why? Because it's poison, right? So it's like during the holidays, it's amazing because I'm at a lot of workouts, and it's just so interesting seeing how much more sluggish people are, right? And then two, it's like, cold and flu season, like so many people are getting sick. It's like, I wonder how much of this sickness is because we spend a week of gluttony, just eating copious amounts of shit, which is terrible for the immune system, right? And then you end up getting sick. It's a really interesting correlation, but as far as recovering from workouts, preventing injury, without question, the best way to prevent injury is proper recovery. If you're poisoning your body with tons of garbage food and not getting enough good food, you cannot recover like you should. Hence, you're more susceptible to get injured, right? For sure. There's just so many things to it. And then plus, when you eat like shit, you don't have as good a workouts, you can't get as strong, you're more inflamed, you hurt more, you can't move as well. It's so freaking important for everyone, especially kids. Like and me too. Just so I know, like adults, I don't care. Adults, choose what the hell you want. But like for kids, try and give them the good stuff so they can't choose. They only get what we give them. So hopefully we, ignore the shitty government food plate advice because it's just stupid. It's it's just unsupported. It's nonsense. Feed them the way we teach, and their outcomes will be just so much better. Like not even no cavities, and it's just so much better. But it's really you brought up that correlation to strength. It's huge.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Anything else? Good. Eat well. Sons of guns.